is now live. People are starting to come in, so that's great. Adrian, Isabel, how are you? Thank you very much for joining us. I will say what I always say as we start these things. Hello, Tad. We would much rather be, hi Lucy, we'd much rather be doing this in a lovely conference room in a nice hotel where afterwards we could all talk together with Paul and Jenny and have a glass of wine, especially as it's Friday. But we can't. So for the meantime, we are in Zoom once again. And at some point, this will end and we will get together perfectly. And when we do, I really hope that Paul and Jenny, you'll be able to join us, because the research that you've done that's resulted in the book, the International Career Couple Handbook, is quite excellent, groundbreaking, new ways of looking at it. I'm fascinated to have this time with you. So thank you very much. Just for everybody who's listening, we have 55 signed up today, but as we were just saying before the call, I think probably a lot of people, it's Friday afternoon, will rely on the recording because everybody knows now that the recording will be on YouTube on Monday. So I will, Paul, hand you the host role so that you can control the PowerPoints and all of that kind of thing. In the meantime, for those of you who've joined us, as I say, the session is being recorded, so if you want to go back over anything, you will have that opportunity. I'm delighted to introduce you to Paul van der Broek. Paul has 15 years experience in HR within multinationals. You have been an expatriate twice. I think you've moved yourself twice, and you've been a traveling partner also. So apart from the fact you also have a PhD, you've written this fantastic book and you're doing research. You have the background which makes this extremely relevant. As does Janny Arsted Skov Hansen. Thank you for being here. Janny has 12 years experience in global mobility HR. So again, is speaking the language that we're all listening to. And also you lived in Nepal and Kyrgyzstan as a traveling partner.
That's true.
When we are in a hotel somewhere in person, I would love to talk to you about that. So listen, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for doing this. To everybody who's watching, thank you for being here as well. I will hand over to you and turn off my microphone.
Super. Thank you very much, Dom. We're very pleased to be here. Hello, everybody who has joined us here on this webinar. So Jenny and I will explain you some things we have discovered in our research, and we will be referring to the survey we sent out before this webinar, and to which most of you have kindly responded, and we'll show you the results of that. So we will be sharing the screen a few times with some slides to show that, and then after that we're really looking forward to having a dialogue with you with some Q&A, which we will be happy to answer, and it helps us also progress our learning always. So we're really looking forward to having that with you. So yeah, so I'll show you some slides, and then I hand over to Jenny to talk a bit more about herself, and then I'll explain some more about our research.
Yes, Paul, and we should say that we are very pleased to be with our peer mobility professionals in this group today. We have had the chance to share our book and our insights with a variety of audiences. So we have been speaking to young professionals within the UN. We have been speaking to a multinational bank out of Switzerland. We are speaking with women's networks. We are speaking with HR networks, and this is our chance to have a sharing with you in the mobility sphere. So both Paul and I have moved on to new ventures, but our heart beats for global careers and everything around a global life where we move between countries, but also where we work internationally. So although I have been in Denmark now for the past 5 years, it's still very much part of my identity that I took the leap, followed my husband in 2 rounds to South and Central Asia, that I, during my time in Kyrgyzstan, saw the need for developing something new in the field of dual careers. So that turned out to be the network we are now building, called Here We Are Global. So we have several local chapters. Here we are Germany, here we are Ethiopia, here we are Poland, etc. So that's a mushrooming community. And some 3 years down the line, here I am co-authoring a book with Paul. We met through a network connection. So that's the beauty of international living, that we are always in for sharing and giving each other ideas, right? So I'm very pleased to be with you today. So my main functionality that I'm also bringing into the book is my 12 years mainly in a multinational, at least a global company in Denmark called Novo Nordisk. So it's a life science company. I've been working primarily with US, Europe, China, and then emerging markets. So again, I have a passion for developing regions. It's part of my DNA. I also have a background in the NGO sector. So I believe that we can do more to support international career couples. I also believe that there's a need for new solutions. And here we are, International Career Handbook, Career Couple Handbook is one way of sensitizing both mobile employees and partners, the career couples, but also the organizations deploying them. So we are part of the same ecosystem as we see it. Yeah, so here you'll see a glimpse of what brought me to the session today. And here you are, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Yanni. So thank you very on top of what Yanni and Dominic had, just a few more things where we're coming from. So Yanni as well as myself have been and still are living in international life professionally. And through that, apart from dealing with expats and internationally mobile people professionally, we have also met through our own explorations many such people, and including international career couples. And on top of that, Yanni as well as myself, we both are part of an international career couple. So we have been living it ourselves, and that has been so we have professional and personal inspirations that led to this book. What I would like to do now is to first show you what you said about the questions we asked you, and allow me to just toggle the screen here. So I need go to the website. There we are. So we asked you several questions. The first one is whether this thing about having a partner with a career is important in making people mobile or not. And yeah, all of you agreed that that's really the case, that it's nowadays still, and already for some years, the number one reason why people refuse an assignment abroad or stay where they are. And the general expectation is that most people expect in the service that this is likely to increase. Some things say it's stable, others say it's growing fast, but the general consensus is that we're going to see more of these international career couples. And then this interesting phenomenon of more and more people taking the initiative themselves to move to another country after they done an interstitial study or had an experience. Yeah, there the consensus is among you that we are going to see more and more of those next to, let's say, the traditional expatriates who are moved to another country on behalf of their employer. Also, most of you, not everybody, but most of you think that organizations will be hiring more and more talent from a different country than for themselves. So through that also leading to increased international mobility. Then, yeah, one particular thing which we also came across in our research, the link with female talent, for whom this mobility of dual career couples provides a particular challenge. And solving this challenge is the key to also creating a better gender balance in international talent and staffing. So there's a particular challenge there to be dealt with. Last question we asked you is, yeah, is it important to offer specific solutions for dual career couples? And there also the consensus is that it's important or even critically important for organizations. So not surprising for this to come from the audience that signed up for this webinar, but it's good to see that there is such consensus on these matters. So let me go back to our own research and tell you a bit more about that. Just
And while you do that, Paul, this whole idea of asking you about whether organizations can do more to support dual career couples, it ties into the times we are in, actually, that we had a good talk with Dome before this event as well, that there's a need to look at the more, let's call it, softer sides of expatriations, right? So compliance and the regular support is needed, but now we really also advocate for duty of care to entail looking at the family and maybe also seeing the traveling partner as something more than just an appendix to the employee. So we are on a mission also to sensitize organizations here.
Absolutely, and yeah, just to show what we are talking about. There is a difference, that are one of the reasons why we did this research. There is a difference between international career couples and other dual career couples or other internationally mobile employees, and that's the fact that they are faced with a more complex situation. They have to deal with international mobility as well as dual careers. And one of those is already complex, and if you combine the two, that adds a particular complexity, which means also they deserve to be dealt with in a somewhat different manner. We talked about growth early on. Is this going to increase over time? Most of you expected this the case, and that's what we've seen as well. That on the one hand, there is the globalization, which may have come to a halt temporarily because of COVID, but which is in our view, will be only temporarily, and then international mobility will come back. There is, outside of international mobility, there is the phenomenon that we see more and more people in dual careers, whether that's the partner they choose or simply because they need incomes to have the lifestyle they want. And when they move abroad, then you have an international career couple. And then, as we said earlier, also with the survey, there is a tendency for, or reality for, women who have a career to have a career partner. So if organizations want to develop more female talent internationally, then by the definition, the number of international career couples will be growing. So there's every reason to deal with this phenomenon going forward. And also it's want to realize again, what's the difference between other couples, dual career couples and international career couples. What is important that on the one hand is this international mobility, and the other hand the commitment to two careers, not one taking precedence over the other, but two careers to which the couple is committed. And as we said earlier, the two of them together brings a lot of complexity. From our research, so we did a survey, and then after that, some in-depth interview with several couples. We looked for diversity, so a range of couples across ages, so from couples who've been together only a few years up to international career couples who've been together for more than 15 years, and internationally mobile. And also, we looked for diversity professionally as well as across countries. So we have some Europeans, mixed European, Australian, and also a couple from South Asia. We purposefully looked for couples who have...
Somebody's wanted?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I had it on mute, but I don't. There we go. So we purposefully looked for couples who are successful, so who have been able to combine two careers and international mobility and stay together. because we were looking for what works rather than what doesn't work. We really were looking for the success factors. And you see that here in the result of a survey that all of our couples were happy with both their progress professionally and their progress as a couple together. And again, couples of different stages in their life. Let me give you some insight of some of the key findings which came out of this research. So an interesting finding we found is that having children does not influence the career success of ICCs. There's no specific difference between couples having children or not when it comes to their career success. There are other factors which are more important. It's not surprisingly, but it's good to confirm it, that the career success of both partners, not just one, but both partners, is critically important for the success of the international career couple. Also our research, as you already confirmed in your answers to our survey earlier on, international mobility is the most significant potential risk factor for career satisfaction of the following partner, and it therefore needs to be dealt with. Interesting, we found, and importantly also for the audience today, professionals working in international mobility as well as employers, international care become more mobile if the partners are treated as a single entity, so together rather than as separate individuals. So rather than having one person who is made mobile or agrees to an expatriation and then dealing with the career partner after that, treat them together as from the beginning. That certainly increases their mobility. Mutual support in careers pays off in individual career success and in partnership success. That means, so if the two partners support each other in their careers, then both careers benefits, but also their couple benefits. Mutual support and knowing where to go is important, but not enough to make an ICC successful. It's also knowing how to get there is important, and that's also why we wrote this handbook with some method and tool that helps international career couples on that path to their success. There's some critical moments in an ICC relationship. One is at the beginning of the relationship, or those first few years, when they are deciding what direction they will go career-wise as well as international mobility-wise. And of course, every time when a relocation decision needs to be made. Cooperation and mutual support of the two partners' careers sustain an ICC in the long term. So it's really about continuously helping each other and talking about the jobs and the careers over time that makes an international career couple sustainable. And we talked earlier about being treated as a single entity by employers and mobility partners. But also for themselves as an ITC to see themselves as an organization, as a team, is vital to sustaining the couple over time. So a few things about the couples which we interviewed.
Yeah, and for us it was important to continue this vision of having a diverse research population. So what we wanted for these in-depth interviews was to find couples who thought that they had made maybe not always the right choices, but some wise choices, and who also used this opportunity to speak with us to make sense of the decisions they made so far. So we spoke with 4 couples. One of them is a same-sex couple, John and Martin. What unites the couples are that they are now in a place in their relationships where they have some miles in their legs, right? But they also have realized that the decisions they have taken have been conscious and have been mindful in the sense that they have taken care of each other. So in terms of the geographical diversity, we both have a South Asian couple. We have a purely European couple, Antonella and Sergio. And they are a little younger than the rest. So that was also important for us to have a variety in the age group. Celia and Tim is a Scandinavian couple now in South Asia. And then John and Martin are from Europe and Australia, respectively. The couples have different professional backgrounds as well. So some are in life science and research. Another partner has a financial background. One is entrepreneur in the field of psychology. And then there are some HR and oil experience in there, and some development experience as well. 3 of the couples have children. 1 of the couples don't. So in that sense, we really think we have managed to have a diversity in the population here. Anything to add, Paul? Yeah.
No, that's fine. So just to know, these are the 4 couples which we interviewed in depth together, on top of the other 30 which we did a survey with, and which is the basis of our research.
And throughout the book, we actually take one of the couples as an example, and we are taking them through a structured process, and Paul will explain that in a moment. And for all of them, like in a whole of our research, what we have derived are 3 critical success factors. One of them being that you need to have a shared vision, like where are you headed? At the end of your career, how will you look back at your global lives and make sense of it all? So a shared vision is important. Next is a secure space. And this can be virtual or physical, but this opportunity for you as a couple to have a place where you talk about the difficult things, where you vent whatever challenges and frustrations, but also where you agree on what's really important to you. And that goes with the vision as well, where you actually have the time to talk about these things and not just the daily who picks up the children, etc. And the third critical factor is mutual career development. So that's adding on to what Paul explained. And here I think it's important to state that it's not only during the transitions, it's also when you are in a job that you as an ICC support each other mutual and be your aspiring partner for each other. So these are the 3 critical success factors.
Thank you, Annie. And as you mentioned earlier, it's important to deal with an international queer couple as an employer, but also the couple themselves as an entity, as a team, as a small organization, but a very complex organization, as we've seen. That's also how we approach it. What you see here is, let's say, the central instrument of a book, a future map, which we invite the couples to work with to map out their future, both in the long term and in the short term. And when you look at that map, then you see a number of words like stakeholders and vision and competencies, business language, if you want, and that's on purpose because the couple needs to work on the long term as an organization to make itself successful. And behind all these words and images, there are instruments and tools to help couples to find their solution and help them on their path to success. Now, from the perspective of mobility partners or employers, as I said earlier, it's important to treat the couple as an entity, as a team, rather than as 2 individuals. And also, by something like this, enable them to find their own solution. It's not about one size fits all, it's rather, it's very diverse, and all couples need a different solution. And to help them find a solution, to empower them to find that solution, and to recognize that they have a specific need as a couple together, so as a team, I think will help a lot to make such couples mobile going forward. We'll show one example of what's behind one of these images when we talk about what key competencies, to give you another flavor of what we offer in the book.
Yes, and throughout the book, we really also want to invite the reader to have fun and make this a joyful approach. We're talking about strategizing, but we're also talking about real lives here. And our competency matrix developed in the Here We Are global community is one way of looking at yourself and your competency and your skill set in a slightly new way, where we branch out and not only look at our job experience, our CV, so that will be the hard skills column, but look at life in brighter colors. So you'll see 7 dimensions here. And this is an invitation to say, before you go on an assignment, what's the story I'd like to tell in 2 years? So it's or 3 years, whatever, but it's based on recruitment experience that once you enter the job market again, be it in your host country or back in your home country, you will be asked to convey how you have expanded your skill set, what you have learned, how you have contributed. So this matrix is an invitation to validate with yourself and your partner in a couple. How do you want to spend your time and energy? An example is if you, when I was at Novo Nordisk, I was presented with this spouse to be, and she said to me, I'm never going to China. I'm never going to China unless I can find a job. And my role was to speak with her and talk about what could be the plan A, B, C in case that job doesn't materialize. So this competency matrix is developed from this standpoint that no matter if you get a paid job, no matter if you have a formal role, there are ways for you to build your skill set. So these 7 dimensions touch upon various dimensions of life, and then you can strategize and say, before I look into a job in this new country, I really want to have balance in my family, etc. So that's life and health. And for all of these, you can say, how do I want to spend my time and energy? Who can help me? What are the results, the stories I'd like to tell? And again, the 7th column, the creativity one, is because we know that so many magical things can happen in a new country. You cannot plan everything from the beginning. Make sure to also branch out, network, and have fun. And maybe this will make you come closer to what you are really meant to do. So it's an existential tool based on HR experience. So you're invited to explore more in the book about this tool.
And finally, for those who want some more facility or ease to work with the various methods and instruments we have developed for these situations, there's also possibility to have some worksheets with people can work offline or online or on their phone. If they wish to do so. It's an important and complex education. I'm saying it again, and it requires some work to get it right, to set your direction, as well as over time to work as a couple to make successful. There's no denying about that. But these instruments can do that in a more easy and also in a fun way to get these couples to be successful and sustainable over time. So this is what we wanted to share with you from our research and our book. Yeah, we're delighted to get your input, your questions, your experiences on this topic.
Hi, everybody. Does anybody have a comment or a question that they'd like to put for Adrian? Thank you very much. So Adrian asks, if having children does not influence the career success, does having dependent relatives like elderly parents impact ICCs? That's a very good question. So it's absolutely a reality
like children, and it can certainly impact that, and that's why it's one of the things which needs to be taken into account when in the planning for an international care couple. And we have a particular exercise around that, which is about stakeholders, where you analyze the stakeholders which can help you reach your goals as a couple, and those who may hold you back. And elderly parents could be that. Now, that's not the reason, of course, not to take care of your elderly parents, but it's a reason to think about and find out, so how can we realize that, take care of our elderly parents, if that's the case, in a way that does not frustrate our long-term plans, so that you create a win-win situation. And that's the whole philosophy of the book, in a way that you think about things in advance and plan, rather than once the moment is there and you haven't thought about it, and your father ends up in a hospital, and you need to take short-term solutions which may have longer-term consequences, which you could have avoided if you took care of that more in the long term.
Yeah, it's very interesting that, because again, on the the notion of the elderly parent, there's less kind of immediacy of support. You're taking your children with you. You can access international schools, local schools, all of that. But with this, it's especially including like things like medical care. Yeah, it's a very, very good point. Isabel, thank you very much. Isabel Goodell says, how do you approach the unless I get a job, I won't go? Unless I get a job too, I won't go, as you mentioned them.
Yeah, I would surely like to respond to that. And I think the next comment is kind of related as well. So what we do when we do workshops and when I give speeches is to bring on this model, the TOP model. So talent, passion, and organizational need. And in my knowledge, both working professionally and also in my own experience, what is really painful is that we all like to do what we are good at, combined with what we love to do, and the organizational need. What happens when you leave your job behind, like my person in the example here, is that the organization is taken away from you. So with that organization goes the identity, the colleagues, the ability to earn money, lots of things. We're talking about subtle things here, but also very concrete. And what we advocate is that instead of just losing the organization, be mindful of what you put instead. So what's the connection you will have to your home job market? What's the connection you will have with peers, colleagues, like other professionals? So what we are doing in our Here We Are global opportunity, community, is to replace that organization with a community where you can build your skill set, take a role, build a chapter, run professional development events, etc., and find opportunities for long-term, short-term engagement, help a startup, all of these things. So that's my what I bring to the table here. Let's think of this in a new way. By all means, spouse support, outplacement, coaching. I'm a coach myself, so I believe in this. But what I believe has been missing is really those opportunities to build your skill set, no matter where you are in the world. And that entails also using digital opportunities. So what you want is to have something on your CV showing that somebody trusted you in your new country, or when you go back again, and that you are able to fill that CV void. And in everything I do, I want to find solutions. We know the dual career issue, right? We turn it into the dual career opportunity. Same with this book. Let's find out what works. We know plenty of sad stories. We're not going into those. We're looking at how can we inspire people to take conscious choices. There's no fix one, what do you call it? No silver bullet solution, right? But what organization needs to pay attention to is that this is one entity. It's not just old school solutions about the accompanying partner needing, a little band-aid in my will. I really want to advocate for this.
If you could have had that conversation with my mother 50 years ago when we moved as a family abroad, I mean, she gave up an incredibly successful career as a psychiatric social worker to follow my father, and you became an expat wife. That was what happened. That was it. Lucy Foster, thanks for bringing up this important topic. As providers of spouse, partner, career and integration support, we're always happy to hear people talk about it. We've long referred to spouses, partners as accompanying talent. It's important that they can take ownership of the assignment for themselves, which is exactly what you're saying. Adrian, do you have any experience of the employer supporting ICCs with stakeholder issues?
I'm looking at you here.
Yeah, I don't have a particular situation in mind. It's not something which came up particularly in our research so specifically. I mean, on the one hand, traditionally there's a lot care for one type of stakeholder, but it's children. I mean, it's a tradition in international mobility. It's the question about schooling and how that's being resolved, and it also bearing in mind with taken into account in cases of housing and so forth. And I would guess, but it's only saying this without having specific data, that's something which is currently on the table with expatriation, but I haven't come across a situation where that's specific other than children. So no.
But on that
There's also
note,
a question
Paul,
by the way. Yeah. Sorry, Yanni.
In our various series of sharing our book, Research and Insights, we hear various examples. So this thing about split postings, like couples being in separate countries, that's one way of maybe finding solutions to this stakeholder issue. That could be children, if they are a couple who's into their second marriage, etc. Then it's maybe sometimes a solution to have a split posting, maybe not for the whole assignment, but for some part of it. So rather than seeing split family postings as something we need to avoid, we want to make sure that couples feel that they both tick their own box and their partner's box, but not leave it there. Make sure that the joint box is ticked, okay? Yes. So sometimes the split posting is maybe a way of ensuring that both in the couple reach their joint vision.
There's a great question in the Q&A from Becky Woods. Becky is a Global Mobility HR Director and asks the question, have you often seen partners who previously didn't want to get or think of getting married being forced to get married because they want to become an ICC but can't get the work visas unless they are married?
So it's something which, yeah, it's something which I've seen happening, and not as part of the research for this book, but generally working with, for example, as a coach with internationally mobile people over the past few years. And as well as also, I still remember a case when I was an international staff planner for Shell many years ago, and trying to get a woman engineer, which was very rare, expatriated to the Middle East. Yeah, this question could come up because they were Dutch, and Dutch don't marry that often, and so that's the decision that couple had to take on the spot because of the assignment. And when thinking of that example as well, and I mentioned in the book as a matter of fact, and you know, it also one of the things that got me thinking, because of course, if people get forced into something they don't want to do, that's rather unpleasant. But if these type of questions are taken into account earlier on, where the couple has the opportunity to think about where do we want to go and what are our values. I mean, if you're principally against marriage, for example, then it may be a reason to bring that to take it into account with an international career, and maybe limiting if it's something which had other reason, and put in the equation of what your things are really important to you and what are the things which are more on the nice to have side, or where you're willing to negotiate about, then it becomes a different matter. And then when you're not forced to do it on the spot, but it's part of your longer term planning, then also this sacrifice, quote unquote, is less of a sacrifice, because it's one of the investment you do in order to realize other things as a couple which are more important to you.
I heard a very interesting creative solution to a similar sort of issue that Becky is referring to. This is quite a few years ago now, but it was a same-sex couple who, one of the partners of one of the husbands, which had been offered a very high-profile job in Dubai. And of course, that was not going to work. And so they actually decided to live in Malta and commute because there's a very short flight between the two. And you just think, there you go, somebody gave them some great advice. Lucy says, one thing to note, in locations where traditional employment isn't possible, it is even more important to have career coaching support to overcome issues and to keep their careers moving forward, even if it's not in the conventional way that it has to date. And thanks for using words like empower and solution, Paul, some of her favorites. So that's great. Adrian, apologies, me again. I may have missed this, but does your planning with ICCs also capture the repatriation and what the ICs will bring back to their home country and the challenges they may face when they return? Very good point.
Certainly, and this is again where our competency matrix becomes handy, because what all of us maybe have seen also, the repatriation challenge is real. Part of the pain can be that you are maybe not coming back to the position you left, rather you are maybe demoted. So in all cases, it's so important to think about, like, how do I stay relevant? How do I stay agile also compared to my peers at home? So this whole thing of feeling sorry for internationals who have been abroad and don't get the same position at home, I had to adjust my own thinking about that. I actually wrote my thesis about that here in Copenhagen. And when I came back from Nepal, I really thought that every organization had it wrong. Like, why don't you value international competencies? And then I learned gradually also from being in an organization that it's, of course, a matter of matching between wants and needs and expectations, but also the organization needs, the jobs need to be there, right? But as a repat, you need to make sure that you are also at par with your peers at home, that you have the stories, the relevant results to show that you are equally qualified for a position. So let's just level it a bit and talk about competencies in general. We are all responsible for expanding ourselves, expanding as persons, right? And just as a slight note, so when you are in China, we don't want you to say after 4 years, whoa, I missed the marathon on the Great Wall. So it's also about, hey, what else do I want to do here to maximize this wonderful opportunity I have abroad?
That's great. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, repatriation is something that, you know, within our industry we talk about a great deal, but it's so important that it's managed in that sense, especially with ICC. So thank you for bringing that up, Adrian. We have come to the end of the questions, and I think if anybody has a question, please pop it in the chat box now or into the Q&A. But if not, Jani and Paul, thank you so much for bringing your insights to this. To everybody who's listening, we're going to run, this is a really important topic, and I think one of the things that's been interesting as we as an organization have tried to sort of transition, you know, we haven't been able to get together now for 2 years. You know, the conferences that we run have an enormous amount of knowledge sharing, and so thank you very much, Jani and Paul, for bringing your knowledge to this, because, you know, it's something we don't talk about enough. And on that score, I'm going to be organizing a further session, a follow-up session in a few weeks' time with Lucy Foster, to delve back into this again, because I think it's one of those, quotes, soft topics like education, like, you know, that just doesn't get the recognition that it really deserves. So I'm really grateful to you both. Thank you so much for bringing this to us. Adrian, thank you. All great replies, really interesting. Thank you for sharing. Same from me. The session has been recorded. It will be sent out to you on the weekend or on Monday. For those of you who are listening who are signed up, the Spring Summit begins on Monday, 4 o'clock CET, Central European Time. Hope to see you there. And in the meantime, Paul and Jani, I'd love to come back to you at some point in the future. And please, please, please come to a EuRA conference. We'll make that happen. Seville in March next year, please.
Location. Yeah, so,
Hasta luego.
Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Paul.
It's a pleasure.
Take care. Bye. Bye, everyone.